The atmospheric processor made a sound like dying metal. Dae-hyun wiped sweat from his forehead and stared at the machine that kept 3,000 humans alive on this distant world. Outside the habitat dome, the sky burned orange and purple, colors Earth never knew. New Seoul Station sat on Kepler 442b, like a small light in an ocean of darkness, 1,200 light-years from home. Dae-hyun had been fixing machines since he was old enough to hold a wrench. His father taught him back in Busan, before the colony ship accident took his family away. Now, at 32, he fixed machines so other people could live among the stars. It was simple work, honest work. It kept him from thinking too much about the past. The communication panel on his wrist buzzed. Director Park's voice crackled through. Dae-hyun, get to the main hall. We have visitors. What kind of visitors? Dae-hyun asked, though his hands were already putting away his tools. The kind that came from another star. Dae-hyun felt his heart beat faster. In 3 years, on New Seoul Station, they had found bacteria and strange plants, but nothing that looked back. Nothing that could speak. He grabbed his jacket and started walking toward the central dome where the colony held its important meetings. The main hall buzzed with nervous energy. Scientists whispered to each other. Security personnel stood straighter than usual. Through the transparent aluminum ceiling, Dae-hyun could see a ship that made human engineering look like children's toys. It was beautiful in a way that hurt to watch, all curves and light, like someone had caught a piece of a star and taught it to fly. Then he saw her. She stood near the director's table, taller than most humans, with skin that seemed to glow from within. Her color shifted like oil on water, moving between deep blue and soft violet. She wore clothes that looked grown rather than made, and her eyes were large and dark like deep space. When she moved, it was with a grace that made Dae-hyun think of dancers and hunters at the same time. This is Lyra, Director Park said, his voice tight with the weight of history being made. She represents the Valian Confederation. They have been watching us for some time. Lyra spoke, and her voice was like music that had learned to make words. We greet you, humans of Earth. We come in peace and curiosity. The diplomatic dinner that night was an exercise in controlled chaos. The colony's best cooks had prepared a feast, trying to show these advanced aliens that humanity had culture and refinement. Dae-hyun sat at the far end of the table, watching. He was an engineer, not a diplomat. Nobody expected him to say anything important. He watched Lyra move through conversations with ease, learning names, asking questions about human history. Her skin shifted colors constantly, and Dae-hyun wondered what it meant. Was it like breathing? Like blinking? Or did the colors say things her words did not? The main course arrived. Roasted vegetables from the hydroponics bay, protein from the vat farms, and a special dish the cooks had spent days preparing. It looked beautiful, glazed, and perfect. Dae-hyun saw Lyra reach for it with her strange, elegant fingers. Something clicked in his mind. The glaze. They had used a compound derived from earth nuts to make it shine. He had read the Valian information packet. His engineer's mind, trained to see problems before they became disasters, made a connection. He stood up so fast his chair fell backward. The sound made everyone stop talking. Don't eat that, he said, his voice too loud in the sudden silence. Lyra's hand froze. Every human in the room stared at him. Director Park looked like he might die from embarrassment. The glaze, Dae-hyun continued, walking toward Lyra. It has a compound similar to what your briefing packet listed as toxic. I think it might hurt you. Lyra looked at him for a long moment. Her skin shifted through colors too fast to name. Then she smiled, and it was somehow both alien and completely familiar. You read the briefing packet? She asked. I read everything, Dae-hyun said, feeling his face grow hot. It's a habit. Director Park quickly called for the medical scanner. It confirmed what Dae-hyun had suspected. The compound would not have killed Lyra, but it would have made her very sick. The dinner continued with safer food, but something had changed. After the meal, Lyra found Dae-hyun on the observation deck. He stood looking out at the alien landscape. thinking about how far from home everyone was. You saved me embarrassment, Lyra said, her glow shifting to warm gold. Among my people, becoming ill at a diplomatic function would have been remembered for generations. I just noticed a pattern, Dae-hyun said. That's what engineers do. What else do engineers do? Dae-hyun thought about it. We look at broken things and imagine them working. We see problems and find solutions. We build bridges between what is and what could be. Lyra's color deepened. My people used to be engineers too. Before we became philosophers and diplomats, we built great things. Then we built terrible weapons. We nearly destroyed ourselves. Now we are very careful about what we build. Humans are still learning that lesson, Dae-hyun admitted. They stood in comfortable silence, watching 3 moons rise over the strange horizon. Finally, Lyra spoke again. I am supposed to learn about your colony, to understand how humans terraform hostile worlds. Director Park said you are the best person to teach me. I'm just a maintenance engineer. You are the human who sees patterns, who reads everything, who saved me tonight. Her skin rippled with colors he could not name. Will you show me how your people turn dead worlds into homes? Dae-hyun looked at this being from another star, so different, and yet asking questions he understood. In her eyes, he saw genuine curiosity. Not the curiosity of a scientist studying insects, but the curiosity of someone who wanted to truly understand. Yes, he said. I'll show you. Lyra's glow brightened to something that looked like joy. Then we will begin tomorrow. I want to understand everything. Your machines, your methods, your way of thinking. My people believe that to truly know someone, you must see the world through their eyes. That works both ways, Dae-hyun said. I want to understand your people too. Then we have an agreement. Lyra extended her hand in a gesture she must have learned from studying humans. Her skin was warm when Dae-hyun shook it, and the glow transferred to his palm for a moment, like holding light itself. As she left, Dae-hyun realized his quiet life of fixing machines and avoiding connections had just become much more complicated. He did not know then that this was the moment everything changed, that this handshake with an alien woman would lead him to places he never imagined. All he knew was that, for the first time since losing his family, he felt something other than the comfortable numbness of routine work. He felt curious. He felt alive. Outside, the alien sky burned with colors that had no names, and somewhere in orbit, a ship from another civilization waited to see what humans were truly made of. The answer, Dae-hyun thought, as he returned to his quarters, was something even he did not fully understand yet. But he would learn. They both would. 3 months changed everything. Dae-hyun showed Lyra the atmospheric processors first. She watched him work with an intensity that made him nervous at first, but he learned to read her colors. Blue meant she was thinking deeply. Green meant she understood. Purple meant she was confused but too polite to interrupt. Gold meant she was happy. You treat the machines like they are alive, Lyra observed one morning as Dae-hyun calibrated a water recycler. My father used to say machines have personalities, Dae-hyun replied, not looking up from his work. You have to understand what they need, what they are trying to tell you when they make certain sounds. My people have a similar belief about our biotech, Lyra said. We grow our ships, our tools, our homes. They are alive, in their way. Perhaps humans and Valians are not so different. Dae-hyun looked at her then. Over the weeks, he had stopped seeing her as alien first. Now he saw Lyra, the way she tilted her head when thinking, how her glow dimmed when she was tired, the small smile she made when she learned something new. Tell me about your world, he said during a lunch break. They sat in the hydroponics garden, surrounded by earth plants struggling to grow under an alien sun. Lyra's colors shifted through a rainbow of memory. Valia is old, so old that we have forgotten what our people looked like before we changed ourselves. We lived in great cities that sang with bioluminescence. Every building, every street, every home glowed with life. It sounds beautiful. It was, but beauty can hide terrible things. Her glow turned dark, almost gray. 5,000 years ago, we fought a war that nearly ended us. We built weapons that could unmake DNA, turned living things into chaos. Entire cities died in moments. We poisoned our own world with our cleverness. Daehyun listened quietly. He understood that tone, the weight of old pain. What stopped it? He asked. Exhaustion, horror, the realization that we were destroying the only thing that mattered, each other. We made a choice. We would never again build weapons. We would focus on healing, growing, understanding. We would become philosophers instead of warriors. And that worked? Lyra's color shifted to something thoughtful. Mostly. But some of my people think we went too far. They believe we became soft, that we lost our strength when we put down our weapons. When I told them I wanted to study humans, some called it foolish. They said you were too young, too violent, too short-lived to matter. What do you think? Daehyun asked. I think they are wrong, Lyra said, and her glow brightened to pure gold. I think humanity is what we used to be. Still fighting, still struggling, but also still hoping. You have not given up on becoming better, even though it is hard. That takes a different kind of strength. Daehyun felt something warm spread through his chest. We tell stories about that. About never giving up. About fighting against impossible odds. Tell me one, Lyra said, leaning forward. So Daehyun told her about Admiral Yi Sun-sin, who won a battle with 12 ships against 300. He told her about Korea rising from war to become a technological power. He told her stories his grandmother used to tell him, about tigers and scholars and ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Lyra listened to every word, her colors dancing with emotions he was learning to read. When he finished, she was silent for a long moment. Your people carry hope like a weapon, she finally said. Even when everything says you should surrender, you find a way to keep fighting. Not with violence, but with determination, with refusal to accept defeat. Is that good or bad? Daehyun asked. It is very human, Lyra said, and I am beginning to think that is the best thing to be. The radiation storms came during the 4th month. The colony's warning systems screamed as solar flares from the nearby star sent waves of deadly particles toward New Sol Station. The food production domes were exposed, their shields designed for normal radiation. Not this kind of assault. Director Park called an emergency meeting. We have 6 hours before the storm hits. If those domes fail, we lose 3 months of food production. We will survive, but it will be very difficult. Daehyun stared at the readouts. The math was simple and brutal. Their shields would fail. People would not starve, but they would go hungry. The colony was too new, too fragile for this kind of setback. What if we combined technologies? Lyra's voice cut through the panic. Everyone turned to look at her. Our ships can adapt to different radiation frequencies. The shields are living tissue that changes based on threat. If we could merge that with your static shielding, Daehyun saw it immediately. We use your biotech as an outer layer. It absorbs and adapts. Our shields handle what gets through. 2 systems working together instead of one trying to do everything. Can it work in 6 hours? Director Park asked. It has to, Daehyun said. What followed was the most intense work of Daehyun's life. Lyra brought samples from her ship, living tissue that glowed with its own light. Daehyun rigged connections, wrote quick and dirty code to make human computers talk to Velian biotech. They worked side by side, speaking in the universal language of urgent problem-solving. Try routing power through the secondary grid, Lyra suggested, her hands deep in glowing alien matter. If I do that, we risk feedback, Daehyun replied, sweat dripping into his eyes. Trust me, our tissue will absorb the excess. Daehyun made the connection. The hybrid system hummed to life, looking like nothing either species had built before. Half technology, half living organism, completely new. The radiation storm hit like an angry god. Alarms wailed. The hybrid shields flared bright enough to hurt eyes. For 10 minutes, Daehyun held his breath and watched readouts spike and fall. Then it was over. The domes held. The food survived. 3,000 people would eat because a human and an alien had worked together. In the aftermath, Daehyun found Lyra sitting in the observation deck, Her glow dimmed with exhaustion. He sat beside her without speaking. They had moved past the need for constant words. "We did it," she finally said. "We did," Dae-hyun agreed. "My people will be impressed. Combining technologies is difficult. It requires perfect understanding of both systems." We understood each other. Lyra turned to look at him, and her glow shifted to warm amber. Dae-hyun had learned enough to know that amber was special, rare. It meant something deep. "Yes," she said softly. "We do." Dae-hyun felt his heart beat faster. When had this stopped being about engineering? When had Lyra become more than an alien diplomat? He could not point to a single moment. It had happened like sunrise, gradual until suddenly everything was bright. "Teach me your language," he said suddenly. "I want to know the real words, not just the translated ones." Lyra's amber glow deepened. "Some Velian words have no human equivalent." "Teach me anyway." So she did. In the quiet hours after work, Lyra taught him words that danced on his tongue. Words for different kinds of light. Words for connections between souls. Words for the space between what is said and what is meant. "This word," she said one evening, making a sound like wind through crystal, means the moment when two people truly see each other for the first time. Not their appearance, but their essence. "When was that moment for us?" Dae-hyun asked. Lyra was quiet for a long time. Her colors shifted through patterns he could not read. "I think it was when you saved me from the poisoned food," she finally said. "You saw me as a person who could be hurt, not as an alien who was different. You protected me like I mattered." "You do matter," Dae-hyun said. "So do you," Lyra replied, and the amber of her skin grew so bright it lit the entire room. Dae-hyun reached out, slowly, giving her time to pull away. His hand touched hers. Her skin was warm, alive with light that transferred to his palm. They sat like that, human and Valian, under the light of 3 alien moons. And neither one wanted to let go. Later, Dae-hyun would remember this as the night he knew. The night he understood that what he felt was more than friendship, more than professional respect. But he did not know yet how complicated things would become. How their different worlds would try to pull them apart. All he knew was that Lyra's hand in his felt like coming home after a long journey. And for now, that was enough. The new ship arrived without warning. It was larger than the vessel that brought Lyra, and it moved through space with the authority of power. Dae-hyun watched it dock with New Seoul Station and felt something cold settle in his stomach. He could not explain why the sight filled him with dread. Lyra came to his workshop that evening. Her glow was dim, almost gray. She had never looked gray before. I need to tell you something," she said, and her voice was different. Formal, like she was speaking to a stranger. Dae-hyun put down his tools. "What's wrong?" "That ship carries my mother, Matriarch Celine of House Velian." Lyra would not meet his eyes. "I am not just a diplomat, Dae-hyun. I am a high daughter. My family is one of the ruling houses of the Valian Confederation." The words hit him like physical blows. Dae-hyun sat down on his workbench. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted you to see me, just me. Not my title, not my family, not what I represent." Now Lyra looked at him, and her eyes held pain. "I wanted to be Lyra who learns about atmospheric processors. Lyra who laughs at your stories, just Lyra." "You are just Lyra," Dae-hyun said. "To me, you always will be." "That is the problem," Lyra whispered. "My mother is here because she knows about us, about our friendship. She is here to bring me home and to finalize my marriage contract." The world seemed to tilt. Marriage contract? In Valian culture, marriage is not about love. It is about genetic compatibility, political alliance, the future of our houses. My marriage was arranged before I was born, to a high son named Korath of House Telvian. The union will bring together 2 powerful families and maintain peace in our confederation. Dae-hyun felt like he was falling. "Do you love him?" "I have never met him." Lyra's colors flickered with distress. "Love is not required. Duty is required. Responsibility is required. Our marriages preserve the stability that keeps us from falling into war again. So you will marry someone you do not know because tradition says you must? Yes. The word was barely a sound. And us? What we have? What we built together? Lyra's glow flared bright with pain. I do not know. I do not know what this is. My people do not have words for it. We do not fall in love. We arrange compatible matches. We bond for the good of our society. What I feel for you, it has no place in Valian tradition. Daehyun stood. He wanted to hold her, but she seemed so far away despite standing right in front of him. What do you feel for me? Everything, Lyra said, and her voice broke. Everything that should not be possible. Before Daehyun could respond, an alert chimed. Director Park's voice came through the communication system. All senior personnel report to the main hall. We are hosting Matriarch Celine. Lyra straightened. Her colors smoothed into perfect, emotionless blue. I must go. Please, do not come to this meeting. It will be easier if you are not there. She left before Daehyun could argue. But he went anyway. He stood at the back of the main hall and watched as Matriarch Celine made her entrance. She was tall like Lyra, but her presence filled the room in a way that made everyone feel small. Her glow was pure white, controlled, revealing nothing. Power radiated from her like heat from a star. Korith stood beside her. He was beautiful in the way Valian people were beautiful, perfect and distant. His glow was cold blue, and when he looked at the gathered humans, his expression showed polite contempt. We thank you for hosting our daughter, Matriarch Celine said, her voice carrying absolute authority. She has learned much about your species. Now she will return home to fulfill her obligations. Daehyun saw Lyra standing stiff and formal beside her mother. She looked like a statue, all her warmth locked away. Director Park tried to make small talk. Matriarch Celine responded with minimal courtesy. Korith said nothing, as if the humans were beneath his notice. Then Korith's eyes found Daehyun. You are the engineer, Korith said, his voice like ice. The one Lyra spent time with. Every head turned. Daehyun felt hundreds of eyes on him. I am an engineer, yes? Daehyun replied carefully. How quaint. Lyra, you played with the local workers, like studying insects, I suppose. Korith's smile was cruel. Daehyun is not an insect, Lyra said, her first word since the meeting began. He is highly skilled and intelligent. For a human, Korith added, but humans are children playing with technology they barely understand. Short-lived creatures who will be dust while we still thrive. It is sweet that you found them amusing, but surely you are ready to return to your own kind now. Daehyun felt anger rise in his chest, but before he could speak, he remembered something Lyra taught him, a Valian proverb about responding to aggression with wisdom instead of force. There is a saying among my people, Daehyun said, his voice steady. The bamboo that bends in the storm survives while the rigid tree breaks. Valians have a similar concept, I believe. Strength through harmony, not dominance. The room went silent. Matriarch Selena's glow flickered with something that might have been surprise. Korith's face darkened. You dare quote our philosophy at me? Korith demanded. I quote wisdom that transcends species, Daehyun replied. Lyra taught me that truth is truth, regardless of who speaks it. Matriarch Celine studied Daehyun for a long moment. You have studied our culture. I have tried to understand it, Daehyun said. Lyra honored us by learning our ways. It seemed right to honor her people in return. Interesting, Matriarch Celine murmured. Then she turned away, dismissing him. That night, Daehyun could not sleep. He paced his small quarters, mind racing. His colleague Ji-won found him in the common area at 3 in the morning. You look terrible, Ji-won said, sitting down with 2 cups of coffee. Lyra is leaving. She is marrying someone she has never met because tradition demands it. Ji-won was quiet for a moment. Do you love her? Yes. The word came out before Daehyun could stop it. Yes, I love her. Is that insane? She is from another world, another species. Our lives are completely incompatible. Love is always insane, Ji-won said. That is what makes it worth having. The question is, what are you going to do about it? What can I do? I am nobody. She is basically royalty. There are thousands of years of tradition saying they belong together. And how much tradition did humans have when we decided to leave Earth? When we said impossible things were worth trying anyway? Ji-won leaned forward. I have watched you with her. I have seen you happier in 3 months than in 3 years. If you let her go without fighting, you will regret it forever. How do I fight an entire civilization's customs? The same way we fight everything else, with stubborn human determination and refusal to accept that some things cannot be done. After Ji-won left, Dae-hyun accessed the colony's database. He read everything about Valian culture he could find. Deep into the night, buried in ancient customs, he found something. A footnote. A historical exception. A law so old most Valians had forgotten it existed. The Trial of Stars. It was a challenge system from before the Valian Wars, when matches could be contested if someone could prove superior compatibility. The trial tested mental, emotional, and spiritual harmony between the challenger and the intended partner. It had not been invoked in over 3,000 years. Dae-hyun read the requirements 3 times. It was technically still valid law. Any citizen could challenge an arranged marriage if they met certain criteria. The problem was clear. Dae-hyun was not a Valian citizen, but there might be a loophole. If Lyra chose to sponsor him, if she agreed to let him challenge. The question was, would she? The Valian bonding ceremony was scheduled for 3 days from now. Dae-hyun had 3 days to make the impossible happen. He spent the next 2 days preparing. He studied Valian philosophy until his eyes burned. He practiced the challenges he might face. He barely ate or slept. On the night before the ceremony, it rained. Real rain, from the terraforming systems, falling on the habitat dome in sheets. Dae-hyun stood outside, letting water soak through his clothes. Then he saw her. Lyra walked toward him through the rain. Her glow visible even through the downpour. She stopped in front of him, water running down both their faces. If you were not human and I were not Valian, what would you choose? Lyra asked. You, Dae-hyun said without hesitation. Always you. Why? Because when I am with you, I am more than I was. Because you see the best parts of humanity and make me want to live up to them. Because in 3 months, you became the most important person in my life. Because I love you. Lyra's glow flared so bright it lit the rain like diamonds. I love you too. I did not know I could. My people said we do not feel this way. But I do. I feel it like a fire in my chest. Then do not marry Korith. Choose me. I cannot. The law? There is a law, Dae-hyun interrupted. The Trial of Stars. It is old, but it is still valid. I can challenge Korith. I can prove that we belong together. Lyra stared at him. You studied our ancient customs? I read everything, remember? If you sponsor me, if you agree to let me try, I will challenge him. I will prove to your mother and your people that love matters more than tradition. The trial is not easy. It will test everything you are. I know. You might fail. You might be humiliated. I know. Why would you risk this? Dae-hyun took her glowing hands in his. Because you asked me a question. If I were not human and you were not Valian, what would I choose? That question deserves a real answer. An answer with action, not just words. Lyra looked at him for a long moment. Rain fell around them. The alien sky flickered with lightning. Then she asked the question that would change everything. Dae-hyun of Earth, would you be my husband, knowing it means you leave behind your world, your people, and perhaps your very biology to match my lifespan? Knowing you might fail and lose everything? Time stopped. Dae-hyun saw his entire future in that moment. Every possibility, every consequence, every sacrifice and reward. And he knew his answer. Yes, he said in Valian, using the ancient form that meant yes across all lifetimes. Yes to everything. The rain fell harder, but neither of them moved. Lyra's glow pulsed with emotions too complex for Dae-hyun to read. He had said yes. Yes to a future he could barely imagine. Yes to leaving behind everything human. Yes to her. "Do you understand what you agreed to?" Lyra asked, her voice shaking. "If you succeed in the trial, if my mother accepts you, you will need to undergo genetic therapy. Your human lifespan is perhaps 80 years. Mine is over 400. You would need to change your very DNA to match me. You would become something between human and Valian. You would never fully be either again." Dae-hyun had thought about this during his sleepless research. The weight of it sat heavy in his chest. To become something new. To leave behind the biology his parents gave him. To watch human friends age and die while he lived on. "I would still remember where I came from," he said. "I would still carry human stories, human hope, human stubbornness. Those things are not in my DNA. They are in my choices. You might hate me for it one day, resent what you gave up. Or I might spend 400 years grateful for every moment." Dae-hyun squeezed her hands gently. "Lyra, that moment you asked me to be your husband, it felt eternal because I saw everything. Every sacrifice and every gift, every difficulty and every joy. And I chose yes. Not because it is easy, but because it is you." Lyra pulled him close, and they stood in the rain holding each other. Her warmth spread through him, her glow lighting the darkness. "We invoke the trial of stars tomorrow," she said, "before the bonding ceremony. I will sponsor you as a citizen of the Valian Confederation. You will challenge Korith before the assembled court. What exactly does the trial involve? 3 challenges. The first tests mental compatibility. Can your mind work in harmony with mine? The second tests emotional truth. Can your heart be honest even when honesty costs everything? The third tests spiritual unity. Can your soul create something that honors both who you are and who I am?" "That last one sounds complicated," Lyra laughed, a sound like bells. "You have no idea, but I believe in you. I believe in what humans call stubborn hope. Tomorrow, we show my people what that hope can accomplish." They spent the rest of the night talking. Lyra explained the details of each challenge. Dae-hyun asked questions, trying to understand how Valian minds worked. By the time the alien sun rose, turning the sky purple and gold, they had a plan. It was a desperate plan. A plan that depended on Dae-hyun being more human than Korith expected. But it was a chance. The Valian court assembled in New Sol Station's largest hall. Matriarch Celine sat on a chair that looked grown rather than built. Other Valian dignitaries surrounded her, their glows creating a rainbow of judgment. Korith stood tall and confident, his blue glow cold with certainty. The human colonists filled the back of the hall. Director Park looked nervous. Jiwon gave Dae-hyun a thumbs up. Dae-hyun wore simple clothes. His best shirt, dark pants, nothing fancy. He looked like what he was, an engineer about to do something impossible. Lyra stepped forward. Her glow was steady amber, and when she spoke, her voice carried power. "I invoke the ancient rite of the trial of stars. I sponsor Dae-hyun of Earth as a citizen of the Valian Confederation and declare his challenge against the arranged bonding with Korith of House Telvian." The hall erupted in shocked whispers. Matriarch Selene raised one hand and silence fell. "The trial of stars has not been invoked in 3,000 years, Selene said, her white glow unwavering. "You understand what this means, daughter? If the human fails, you will still bond with Korith, and the shame will follow you forever." "I understand, Mother," Lyra said. "I also understand that some things are worth the risk." Selene studied her daughter for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Very well. Let the trial begin." Korith laughed. "This is foolish. A human cannot possibly match Valian mental discipline or emotional depth. But if you wish to be humiliated, small creature, I will oblige you." "The first challenge begins now," Matriarch Selene announced. "The game of balance." A holographic display appeared between them. It showed a complex system of resources, populations, and environmental factors. Dae-hyun recognized it as similar to the terraforming simulations he ran, but far more intricate. You will manage this colony world, Celine explained. You will make decisions about allocation of resources, population growth, environmental management. Korath will play against you. After 1 hour, we will judge whose world thrived best. Lyra will determine whose approach better matches Valian philosophy. The game began. Korath played aggressively. He pushed for maximum growth, maximum resource extraction, maximum expansion. His colony grew fast, towers rising, population exploding. Dae-hyun played differently. He balanced growth with sustainability. He left some wilderness untouched. When he had to choose between fast expansion and stable foundations, he chose stability. His colony grew slower but steadier. 40 minutes in, Korath's colony hit a crisis. His rapid expansion had depleted key resources. Populations were hungry. The environment was collapsing. He tried to fix it, but the damage was done. His beautiful towers crumbled. His people suffered. Dae-hyun's colony grew quietly, sustainably, steadily. When the hour ended, his world was green and balanced. Not the biggest, not the flashiest, but alive and thriving. Lyra stepped forward to judge. Korath's approach valued dominance over harmony, growth over balance. This was our way in the old times before we nearly destroyed ourselves. Dae-hyun's approach valued sustainability, long-term thinking, and respect for the systems he managed. This is the Valian way we chose after our wars. Dae-hyun's victory. Korath's glow flickered with rage, but he said nothing. The second challenge, Matriarch Celine announced. The revelation of truth. Each of you will share your deepest fear. No lies, no protection, raw honesty. We will know if you hide anything. Korath went first. He stood tall, his glow steady. My deepest fear is losing my family's status. House Telvian has been powerful for 10,000 years. I fear being the generation that fails to maintain our position. I fear being forgotten, being insignificant. It was honest, but it was small. A fear about status, about reputation. Then it was Dae-hyun's turn. He thought about lying, making himself look brave. But this was a test of truth, and truth was the only thing he had. My deepest fear, he began, his voice quiet but steady, is that I will die meaningless and alone. I lost my family when I was young. Everyone I loved died in the cold darkness of space. Since then, I have been afraid that I matter to no one, that when I die, the universe will not notice. That I will leave nothing behind to say I was here, that I loved, that I tried to make things better. The hall was silent. Even Korath looked uncomfortable. I fear that every connection I make will be temporary, Dae-hyun continued. That I am just passing through other people's lives without leaving a mark. That is why Lyra matters so much to me. For the first time since I lost everyone, someone saw me. Really saw me. And I thought, maybe I am not just temporary. Maybe I can matter to someone. Lyra's glow was pure gold, tears running down her face. Matriarch Celine spoke, her voice softer than before. The human's fear touches the core of Valian philosophy. We believe the greatest tragedy is to live disconnected, to pass through existence without truly touching another soul. Korath fears social consequences. Dae-hyun fears existential emptiness. Dae-hyun's victory. Korath's glow turned dark purple, but he had no argument. The third challenge, Celine said, the offering of union. Each of you will create something that represents your bond with Lyra. You have 1 hour. Korath immediately began working with holographic displays. He created something complex and scientific, a genetic map showing how his DNA and Lyra's would combine to produce optimal offspring. He included projections of their children's abilities, their expected contributions to Valian society. It was impressive, precise, perfect. Dae-hyun had nothing like that. He had no advanced technology, no genetic databases. All he had was himself and the things he brought from Earth. He sat down and began to write. By hand, with old-fashioned pen and paper, Dae-hyun wrote every Korean folktale his grandmother ever told him, the tiger and the scholar, the sun and the moon, the devoted daughter, the clever rabbit. Stories of hope and struggle, of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. But he did not just write them. Next to each story, he wrote Valian philosophy that matched the themes. The tiger story, about strength through wisdom, connected to Valian teachings about balanced power. The devoted daughter story, about sacrifice for love, connected to Valian ideas about harmony above self. He showed how his culture and Lyra's culture spoke the same truths in different languages. How human stories and Valian philosophy were not different things, but different expressions of universal wisdom. When the hour ended, he had created a book. Simple, handmade, but filled with the blending of two worlds. Korath presented his genetic projections with pride. They were beautiful, scientific, impressive. Dae-hyun placed his handwritten book before matriarch Celine. This is my offering, not a plan for children, but a promise about how those children will be raised. They will know both worlds. They will carry Korean folk tales and Valian wisdom. They will be living bridges between species. They will matter because they will connect things that were separate. Celine picked up the book with careful hands. She read silently for long minutes. Her glow shifted through colors Dae-hyun could not interpret. Finally, she looked up. Korath's offering is practical and valuable. It shows what bonding with Lyra would produce. She paused. But Dae-hyun's offering is visionary. It shows not just what bonding would produce, but why it matters. He honors both cultures equally. He promises not to erase what makes him human, but to blend it with what makes us Valian. He offers genuine union, not absorption. She stood, and her glow brightened to pure, brilliant white. Before I make my judgment, I have one question for you, human. Why should we trust humanity with our daughter? This was it, the moment everything depended on. Dae-hyun took a breath and spoke from his heart. Because humanity's greatest strength is that we refuse to accept limits. We were told we belonged on one world, so we built ships to reach the stars. We were divided by language and culture, so we learned to listen and understand. We were told the universe was cold and uncaring, so we brought warmth wherever we went. Your daughter asked me to be her husband, and that moment felt eternal because it represents what we do best. We turn the impossible into the inevitable. We take what everyone says cannot be done, and we do it anyway, not through force, but through hope and determination. The hall was absolutely silent. You asked why you should trust us with Lyra. I cannot speak for all humanity, but I can promise that I will spend every day of my extended life proving she made the right choice. I will honor her culture while preserving my own. I will raise children who know that love is stronger than tradition, that connection matters more than status, and that the universe is better when different peoples work together instead of staying separate. Matriarch Celine's glow pulsed with emotion. You have won the trial, she said. All three challenges. You showed mental wisdom, emotional truth, and spiritual vision. But Korath has one final right under ancient law, the right to physical challenge. Korath stepped forward, his glow dark with rage. I invoke combat. If this human thinks he can take what is mine, let him prove it with strength, not just words. The challenge arena was a circle marked on the floor of the main hall. No weapons, no armor, just two beings fighting for the right to marry the woman they both claimed. Dae-hyun looked at Korath and understood immediately that he was outmatched. Korath stood taller, with muscles that moved like cables under his glowing skin. Valians were stronger than humans, faster, their reflexes enhanced by thousands of years of genetic refinement. This was not going to be about strength. Are you certain? Lyra whispered, as Dae-hyun stepped toward the circle. You could forfeit. You won the trial. Some would argue that is enough. Some would argue, Dae-hyun agreed, but Korath would not, and your mother needs to see this through to the end. He smiled at her. Besides, I am human. We are very good at fighting things bigger than us. To submission or surrender, Matriarch Celine announced. No killing, no permanent damage. When one cannot continue, the fight ends. Dae-hyun stepped into the circle. Korath followed, his glow pulsing with eager violence. I will enjoy this, Korath said. Putting you in your place, little human. We will see, Dae-hyun replied calmly. The fight began. Korath rushed forward with speed that shocked Dae-hyun. A fist came at his face. Dae-hyun barely dodged, feeling the air pressure as the blow missed by centimeters. He stumbled back, and Korath pressed the advantage. The Valian was a trained fighter. His movements were precise, economical, devastatingly effective. Every punch and kick was thrown with perfect form. Dae-hyun had been in exactly 3 fights in his entire life, all of them in school, all of them losses. Korath's next strike caught Dae-hyun in the ribs. Pain exploded through his chest. He went down hard, gasping. "Yield," Korath commanded. "Save yourself the humiliation." Dae-hyun pushed himself up. His ribs screamed in protest. "Not yet." He came at Korath again, this time more carefully. He feinted left, then right, trying to confuse the pattern. Korath saw through it easily and landed another blow, this one to Dae-hyun's shoulder. Dae-hyun fell again. In the watching crowd, Ji-won winced. Director Park looked away. The Valian dignitaries watched with expressions that said the outcome was never in doubt. Only Lyra kept her eyes on Dae-hyun, her glow bright gold, silently begging him to get up. And he did, because that was what humans did. They got up. "You cannot win," Korath said, circling him. "You are slower, weaker, less trained. Why do you keep standing?" "Because," Dae-hyun panted, blood in his mouth, "humans are very bad at knowing when to quit." He came at Korath again, and again Korath beat him down. But this time Dae-hyun noticed something. Korath's movements were perfect, which meant they were predictable. Every combination followed classical Valian combat forms. Perfect form meant patterns. Patterns could be learned. Dae-hyun was an engineer. He saw patterns. He understood systems. So he stopped trying to fight Korath's way. He stopped trying to be strong or fast or technically skilled. Instead, he became unpredictable. When Korath threw a perfect high strike, Dae-hyun dropped to the ground completely, rolled under it, and kicked at the back of Korath's knee. It was ugly, undisciplined, nothing like proper fighting form. It worked. Korath stumbled, just for a second, but it was the first time Dae-hyun had made him lose balance. "Clever," Korath admitted, recovering quickly, "but tricks will not save you." The fight continued. Dae-hyun took more punishment. His face swelled, his body screamed with pain. But every time Korath knocked him down, he learned something. The timing of that specific combination, the way Korath shifted weight before a kick, the slight tell before a feint. Humans learned. That was their thing. They adapted. 10 minutes into the fight, Dae-hyun was still standing. Barely, but standing. Korath was breathing harder now, frustrated. This should have been over in seconds. The human should have been unconscious or surrendered. Instead, he kept getting up, kept adjusting, kept refusing to quit. "Why?" Korath demanded, genuine confusion in his voice. "You have proven your courage. No one would blame you for yielding. Why continue this?" Dae-hyun wiped blood from his mouth. "Because she asked me to be her husband, and I said yes across all lifetimes. That means I fight for her. I fight when I am tired. I fight when I am hurt. I fight when everyone says I should quit. That is what love is. Showing up even when it is hard." Something changed in the watching crowd. The humans were on their feet now, shouting encouragement. Even some of the Valians had shifted colors, their glows showing respect. Korath came at him again, harder now, trying to end it. But his frustration made him sloppy. He abandoned perfect form for pure aggression. And Dae-hyun, battered and bleeding, saw the opening. When Korath overextended on a wild punch, Dae-hyun did not try to counter with a strike. Instead, he dropped low, grabbed Korath's arm, and used the Valian's own momentum to throw him off balance. It was clumsy, desperate, and it worked. Korath went down. The hall gasped. Korath was up in an instant, his glow dark with rage. "Lucky accident." "Maybe," Dae-hyun said. "Let's find out." What followed was brutal. Korath unleashed everything, fury replacing discipline. Dae-hyun could not match his strength or speed, but he did not have to. He just had to survive, to adapt. to refuse to stay down. He took hits that would have finished most fights. His vision blurred, his legs wobbled. But every time Korath knocked him down, Daehyun stood back up. And slowly, impossibly, Korath began to tire. Valians were stronger than humans, but they were not used to prolonged combat. Their fights ended quickly, with technique and power. They did not have human endurance, human stubbornness, human refusal to accept defeat. 15 minutes into the fight, both were exhausted. But Daehyun was used to exhaustion. He had worked 18-hour shifts fixing machines in hostile environments. He had trained himself to function when his body screamed to stop. Korath had never needed that kind of endurance. When Korath threw his next combination, it was slower, sloppier. Daehyun dodged the first strike, absorbed the second, and countered with a desperate, wild punch that somehow connected with Korath's jaw. The Valian staggered. Daehyun pressed forward, using every bit of strength he had left. He was not elegant. He was not skilled. But he was relentless. He tackled Korath, and they both went down. On the ground, technique mattered less. It became about will, about who wanted it more. Daehyun pinned Korath's arm and locked his legs around the Valian's torso. It was a hold he had seen in martial arts videos, probably doing it wrong, but Korath could not break it. "Yield!" Daehyun gasped. "Never," Korath snarled. They struggled. Seconds passed like hours. The hall was completely silent except for the sounds of two beings fighting with everything they had. Then Matriarch Selene spoke. "Enough!" Daehyun released the hold and rolled away. He could barely stand. Korath lay on the ground, chest heaving. "The human has proven his point," Selene said. "He cannot be beaten because he will not stay down. Korath, do you yield?" Korath looked at Daehyun, really looked at him. The human was a mess, bleeding and battered, barely able to stand. But his eyes were clear and determined. "I yield," Korath said quietly. "Not because he is stronger, but because he wants this more than I do. He has earned it." The hall erupted in sound. Humans cheering, Valians glowing with complex emotions. Daehyun collapsed to his knees. Lyra rushed to him, her hands glowing with healing light as she touched his wounds. "You are insane," she said, tears streaming down her face. "You could have been seriously hurt." "Worth it," Daehyun managed to say through split lips. Matriarch Selene approached them. She stood looking down at the human who had won her daughter through sheer refusal to give up. "I have lived for 473 years," she said. "I have seen empires rise and fall. I have witnessed the evolution of civilizations, but I have never seen determination like yours." She paused. "My people forgot something important when we chose peace over war. We forgot that there is a kind of strength that has nothing to do with violence. The strength to keep going when everything says to stop. You have reminded us of that." She extended her hand. "You have my blessing, Daehyun of Earth. You will marry my daughter, and you will be the first human formally adopted into a Valian house. Your children will carry both bloodlines, both cultures, both philosophies. They will be something new." Daehyun took her hand and let her help him to his feet. Everything hurt, but nothing had ever felt so right. The bonding ceremony happened 3 days later, after Daehyun's body had healed enough to stand without wincing. It was a blend of human and Valian traditions. Daehyun wore a traditional Korean hanbok. Lyra wore living garments that glowed with bioluminescence. They exchanged vows in both languages, promising to honor both their worlds. When they kissed, Lyra's glow transferred to Daehyun's skin for a moment, making him shine like a star. The genetic therapy began the next week. Slowly, carefully. Valian doctors adjusted Daehyun's DNA to extend his lifespan, to make him compatible with Lyra in every way. It was not easy. Some days he was sick. Some days he felt like he was losing himself. But Lyra was there every step, holding his hand, reminding him who he was. "You are still human," she would say. "Still stubborn. Still hopeful. Still the man who refused to quit. That is not in your genes. That is in your soul." 5 years later, they had 2 children. A daughter named Hana, who glowed soft pink and loved Korean folktales, and a son named Taemin who was fascinated by terraforming engines. The children were beautiful, strange, perfect. They looked human and Valiant at once, belonging to both worlds and to neither. Dae-hyun and Lyra served as joint ambassadors, their marriage a symbol of what was possible when different peoples chose connection over separation. More mixed unions followed theirs. Humans and Valians working together on projects that neither could accomplish alone. The galaxy was changing. Slowly, carefully, but changing. On the night of their 5th anniversary, Dae-hyun stood in the observation deck of New Seoul Station, his daughter sleeping on his shoulder. The alien sky burned with colors that still amazed him. Lyra stood beside him, her glow soft gold with contentment. "Do you regret it?" she asked quietly. "Giving up your human lifespan? Becoming something new?" Dae-hyun thought about it. He thought about the family he lost, about the life he could have lived. But he also thought about Hana sleeping peacefully, about Taemin who had asked him earlier why the stars were different colors, about Lyra's hand in his. "No," he said. "When you asked me to be your husband, that moment felt eternal, and I was right. Because from that moment, we built something that will last forever. Not just our marriage, but proof that love can bridge any distance, overcome any difference, turn the impossible into the inevitable." Lyra leaned her head on his shoulder. "That is very human of you." "And you love me for it," Dae-hyun replied. "I do," Lyra agreed. "Across all lifetimes I do." They stood together under 3 moons and countless stars. A family that should not have existed, proof that humanity's greatest strength was not weapons or technology or even survival. It was the stubborn, hopeful, unreasonable belief that love mattered more than logic, that connection was worth any sacrifice, and that when someone you loved asked you to do the impossible, the only answer was yes. That was the moment humanity truly became a galactic species. Not when they built ships or established colonies, but when a Korean engineer married an alien diplomat and raised children who carried hope in their mixed blood. The universe was vast and cold and indifferent. But in one small corner of it, a human had looked at impossible odds and said, "Fuck yeah, I can do that." And he did. That was what humanity brought to the stars. Not conquest, not dominance, but the radical, beautiful idea that nothing was impossible if you refused to give up. The stars watched, and somewhere in the darkness, other species saw what had happened on New Seoul Station and wondered if maybe, just maybe, they had something to learn from these strange, stubborn, hopeful humans who turned a moment into eternity through the simple act of choosing love over everything else. And Dae-hyun, holding his sleeping daughter while his wife's glow warmed the darkness, smiled. Because he had kept his promise. He had shown up every day. He had fought when it was hard. He had loved across all lifetimes. And in doing so, he had proven that humanity belonged among the stars not because they were strong, but because they were brave enough to love even when love seemed impossible. That was the human way. That was humanity. Fuck yeah.